Hello again, and this is Matthew from the Indiana Jones and the Seven Cities of Gold development team, and I'm going to continue on my series of tutorials on how to do some perspective in 2D adventure games. And we've seen in previous lessons, lesson 1, what are the different types of perspectives, and lesson 2, how to force in curved perspective into your basic types of perspectives. So that was for the basics, so that you understand what we are talking about. But now we're going to move on to the more interesting things, and what really interests us is how to use all this knowledge to make a good-looking 2D adventure game. And in this lesson, I'm going to show you basically how to cheat with perspective and why it's good and how everybody does that. So let's have a look. So I still have my scene here in my white rectangle, and I'm gonna just show you some examples in this lesson. So I'm gonna start with the most basic one, which is Maniac Mansion. Maniac Mansion is a classic, okay? And let's see what the rooms look like in Maniac Mansion. And surprisingly, we see that they all look the same. What do we mean by that? I'm gonna draw the perspective lines as I see them in the scene, okay? So for example, one here, one here, like this, one here, and one here. So it lacks a bit accuracy what I drew, but basically what we can see is that we have a 1 point perspective. Let me remind you how I know that. It's because I have one vanishing point in the middle, which is here. I have my horizon line here, where all the lines meet. Let me zoom so that you can see better. And so one of the dimensions is represented with proper vanishing lines, the Z dimension, the one for depth, but the two other dimensions are flat. How do I know that? So it's very easy. This dimension is made of parallel lines. I picked a wrong color because you can't see blue on blue and you can't see pink on blue either. Damn it, I need to find a color that you can see. So basically, parallel line here. I've got a few more here, parallel. So one dimension is flat. And another dimension which is flat is the vertical one. As you can see, the door, parallel lines. The pool table, parallel lines. It's not pool, but whatever. The arcade, parallel. So all parallel. So two dimensions are flat and one dimension is real. So that's 1 point dimension. 3 minus 2 equals 1. Okay, but what is more interesting? So that's for the basic. But what can we see in some other scenes of Maniac Mansion? Look at this, for example. Let me find a scene that is interesting for us. Look at this scene, this very long scene with the dining room. What can I see? Let me draw the vanishing lines. One vanishing line here, another one here, another one here, and another one here. So if I draw the horizon line, it would, oh sorry, little mishap. Okay, so what do I see? It's supposed to be a 1 point vanishing line, but strangely, even though the walls are supposed to be parallel in real life, because when you have a wall at one end of your room and a wall at the other end of your room and your room is rectangular, they're supposed to be parallel, but they don't have the same vanishing point. That's starting to be strange. So it's the first trick that you will witness in adventure games. The advantage of doing this is that if you were actually respecting the vanishing lines, if the vanishing point was in the middle, you would have vanishing lines like this. and the walls at the very end of the room would be very long and very distorted. They would be almost facing the viewer. And that would be a problem because we don't want the side walls to occupy too much of the space. So the person who drew this background made the decision that they would use two different vanishing points for the two opposite walls. And as you can see, the whole scene cannot be seen at once by the viewer. The player needs to move around the room to see each end of the room. And for that there is a scrolling. A scrolling occurs when the player moves to the left or to the right, and you can never see the whole scene at once. And so the part of the scene that you see at any given point in time is very reduced. So that means we don't need to use curved perspective. We would use curved perspective even if we wanted to see the whole big scene in one little viewport. There would be a distortion occurring. But since there is just a little bit of the scene in the viewport at a given time, and we don't want to bother with too much distortion that makes everything more complicated, we just keep everything parallel. All horizontal lines are kept parallel, and we use a scrolling, and we use a different vanishing point for each wall at the very end. I hope I'm being clear, but that's the first trick you see. Several vanishing points for several walls. And this is Maniac Mansion, but I can show you that in more recent games. For example, I have some screenshots from Gemini Rue, which is a recent game, and what do I see? Let me show you what do I see. Look at this scene, for example. The guy is standing on the sidewalk, and I have a vanishing point here for the roof of that thingy, and on the ground I have a vanishing line here. And what do I see? So that makes the vanishing point should be somewhere around here. Alright, and the more I move to the right, the more the vanishing light should be sort of horizontal, and the more the same distance, which is this distance, which is the width of the sidewalk, the more it should appear long on the screen. You see, the more I go to the right, the longer it is. It should be, at least. But the drawer decided that he would keep everything more or less parallel. I say more or less because it's not completely parallel. So here I've got this vanishing line, and here I've got this vanishing line, which is almost parallel, and here I've got this vanishing line, still almost parallel, and here I've got this vanishing line, almost parallel. And let me draw them all the way. One here, one here, one here. So basically I've got a different vanishing point for each section. I've got one vanishing point here for the first section. I've got another one approximately here, another one approximately here, another one approximately here. So there you go. I will show you more examples in the next video. Thank you very much. Whoops.